So, hey, everybody in the community, I've got Melissa Marr with me. And for those who haven't met Melissa, you're in for an absolute treat. Melissa creates a safe space to have a real conversation about money, and she's passionate about uncovering how our relationship with money impacts our motivations and behavior every single day. Melissa has over 20 years' experience in the financial services industry, working previously as a financial planner, stockbroker, and seminar delivery specialist across a broad range of employers, from the big guys to the smaller boutique firms. Then, around 8 years ago, Melissa had a realization that she was a nonconformist and never really fitted into the box of being employed. Think starfish formation. She knew there was something more for her. She knew that she definitely didn't want to be employed anymore, and she knew she wanted to be 100% available for her young children. So Melissa consolidated all her amazing knowledge and experience around money and finances, coupled with her deep desire to help and support women, and created her own money coaching business called Talking Money. Talking Money is about transforming women's lives by providing the tools, support, and framework to empower them to have clarity, awareness, and efficiency around their money, to show women who are ready and open to claim their worth for ultimate financial freedom and choice, activating their abundance, freeing themselves from limiting beliefs, and truly stepping into their divine feminine power. Welcome, Melissa. You and I have known each other for a while, and we've been
Oh,
so
yeah.
looking forward to having this conversation.
Yep. Yep. No, thank you for having me.
There's a lot been going on for you, and we've got 5 top things we want to cover today. And we've just had a chat before we went live just about how much you want to do this more often, because you have such a depth of knowledge and expertise, and you can help so many people by sharing that expertise. So we're going to break it down, and we'll probably interview you a few more times,
Great.
which I'm very much looking forward to. But we're going to jump straight into it. I better do an intro on me. I'm Nicole Van Hattem, and I'm a success coach. And I absolutely have a passion for educating and coaching specifically women in small business, and very much around burnout. So I specialize in anti-burnout strategies for female business owners and high achievers. Let's get into the top 5 because we do have a lot to cover. The first one is, what the hell is financial self-care? What would you say that is, Melissa?
It's a funny thing because a lot of us practice, being healthy with our eating and our exercise and our spiritual self, our spiritual side of things of meditating and journaling and stuff like that. But I think very few of us would look at including our money and our personal finances and our own, personal financial self-care in that space. And I think it's probably just as important as everything else, because it's the relationship, it's how we interact with it, with our energy and our relationship with our money and that sort of thing. So I think it's really important to, for it to be front and center for us. And, as I say to my clients, and they always say, once you see these things about your finances and getting clear on them and understanding what's going on and all that sort of thing, once you see it, you can't unsee it. So I think it's really about getting into it doesn't mean you have to spend every day all day, which we don't on all the other stuff either, but it's just creating that awareness and creating that space and that presence around what is going on with your money and finances, and be kind to yourself about it as well. So, financial self-care is actually really being kind to yourself and not putting yourself under stress, or not putting yourself in situations that's going to put you under stress. And, as we know, money is one of the main stresses that we have in our lives. And, we're just talking about that, that can lead towards burnout, or just really putting our backs up against the wall, and where we can't move, or we can't breathe, or we can't operate because we put ourselves in such. So this is really, I guess this is flipping it and reframing it and saying, well, let's be proactive about our money and finances, which is what I basically call financial self-care. So we don't go down the rabbit hole of, making decisions that aren't serving us, or putting ourselves under extreme pressure. Let's not even go there. And the best way to do that is financial self-care.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you think about what's the opposite of financial self-care? It's financial self-abuse.
Yep.
Yep. So
Yes.
either you're
Yes.
allowing a situation to occur because, you're not taking responsibility for caring for your own finances or your
Yep.
own financial education or
Yep.
your own awareness of what you are spending and what you're not spending. And so you're complicit in your own self-abuse. And we were talking about that before we started
Mm.
recording as well as having a good honest look at yourself, and are you taking care of it, or are you abdicating responsibility?
Mm.
Are you expecting someone else to rescue you? That was certainly an unconscious thing that I was doing for myself. I always expected my husbands to take responsibility for that, and I
Mm.
wanted to share responsibility with them, and to some degree that that resulted in a quite a battle between the
Mm.
two opinions on how money would be managed, and it was created a lot of stress in those relationships. Whereas if I'd gone, oh, you know what, there are things that I am personally responsible for, and I need to own that. I need to put my hand up and say I either need help or I need education,
Mm.
or I need some guidance, or I need a coach, or I need support, or
Yeah.
I need to admit that I might have a problem in some areas. I
Yep.
absolutely didn't want to look at my finances, and when I did, it scared the bejeebers out of me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
once I finally went, I am abusing myself financially. How do I get myself out of this? That was the turning point. And now,
Yeah.
about 2 years down the track, I'm in a very different and very positive state.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's really about, providing women with the tools and the knowledge and the support to be able to do this. I think that's because a lot of us don't know how to do it. Like, it's about putting in place these, financial foundations. And I'm talking about our personal finances because,
Mm.
as you and I both know, we come across these amazing, crazy, amazing, switched on, dynamic, motivated, successful women in their businesses. But you ask them what their mortgage repayments are, and they wouldn't be able to tell you. And it's because I believe it's which we'll talk about in a while anyway, but because such a big part of our identity is very tied up in money and finances. And so, when it comes to our businesses, they sort of the business numbers, and they're separate, whereas our personal stuff is very close to, very entangled in everything else that's going on, and which I think also leads to us, not taking responsibility, not taking accountability, not taking ownership in all the areas that we should. So there's sort of, there's a two-pronged thing is actually, well, number one, we weren't actually taught how to do this, which is,
Mm.
that's probably another story for another day.
Mm.
But it's but there are, there is support, there is this knowledge and this support available for women out there now. So they need to go and sort this. Can I swear on this? Can I
Oh,
swear?
go right ahead. Absolutely.
Sort this shit out, because it is going to bite them in the bum in so many different ways. Even if it has an impact on their business success, their ability to grow the business. If a relationship ends, there can be hugely wide sweeping ramifications. And it's just, yeah, and that's essentially what financial self-care is, which is 100% what you were saying, because the opposite is financial abuse.
Mm. And it's
Yeah.
self-abuse. You're
Yep.
allowing abuse, or you're abusing yourself by not taking responsibility for this key aspect of being an adult.
And you
Yeah.
may not even go as far as say as you're being a victim, because you are not standing up. You're not empowered. You're not in control. You don't know what's going on. And look, it doesn't mean that, if you're with a partner, you both have to, what you were saying before, you don't have to be 100% involved in every single little minute financial decision that, that has to be made. But you sure as hell need to know what's going on, and you need to know what assets you've got, what's your debt position, what are your financial structures, what's going on, to be able to know that if something did happen or your circumstances did change, that you actually understand what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Mm.
So let's move on to two, how to
Mm.
protect your dollars over the festive season, which
Oh,
was a
wow.
hot
Yeah,
topic for
yeah,
today.
yeah.
What tips have you got for us?
Look, I think that I was thinking about this afternoon or today when I was driving back from the coast of what, those areas. And I think it's it's like fundamentally you need to have a plan and a plan of attack. Like, so it's like planning, your gifts for your kids, or, it's actually having a plan or a strategy or whatever. So it's not, going out to a shopping center and, thinking I'm just going to wander around and, pick up a few presents and like, because what ends up happening is you put yourself under stress talking about financial self-care. Then you start panicking and you will just buy because you've got to buy. And I think, a lot of us fall under that thing that if we don't have ideas and or know where to go to buy the presents or whatever, we go into panic mode and it's just like, we just go, well, whatever. And I can 100% guarantee you, if you're in that space, you'll end up spending a lot more money than you're planning to spend, because you're just like, whatever the cost, I just need to get some presents for these people. So I think it's really, really important to go with a really clear plan of attack for, presents.
So who you're going to buy for, what you're going to buy, and maybe the budget per person as well.
What you're buying. I know with my two kids, it's like I'm laser. I am a laser when I go. And look, they give me really good lists, which is very helpful. But I think it's, you really have to know where you're going and what you've got to do, because otherwise you'll start going, ooh, I need to buy. So I think that's the first one. The second one is to share the load, even if you are hosting Christmas, and most people are in that space now, but you don't have to do everything. You don't have to pay for everything. Like it's very, we need to get back to, and I think, I hope COVID has been a bit of that, to get back to what's actually really important. And it's actually, spending time. A lot of people are in the position this year that they're able to spend time with their families, which hasn't been the case for a couple of years. So let's just focus. Yeah, let's just focus on that and not focus on all the other periphery external stuff of, presents and, food. And obviously that's important as well. But let's, I've been read a couple of things lately of, just really getting back to actually what is important. And
we'd be surprised how little that costs too. What's important costs so little, really. My neighbours, bless their hearts, we moved into a new neighbourhood and they popped over to give us our Christmas present, which was a bag of homegrown passion fruit pulp frozen into cubes for smoothies, and a homemade jar of pickled gherkins with a lovely label on it. And that was our Christmas present. I'm
How gorgeous.
Wow, that meant so much to me. Then if they'd actually gone and bought something that was recycled jar, and I just love it. And then there are people who would be, in a position to be able to buy presents, but I just love that so much more.
I know one of my best mates made me a friend of ours in the area does bees. She does beekeeping and produces honey and stuff like that. So my friend had used some of the local providers' honey and wax to make a myrtle and honey wax lip balm, which is like crazy amazing. And it's bloody good too. So
wow.
Yes. So, and I guess that's another point, is actually think outside the square when it comes to presents. I know, for a couple of years, the kids and I used to make all sorts of stuff and make up, we'd go and buy one little present, but then we'd make like different things and make them, the kids would help me make them, and just fun stuff. And it's
fun stuff. Yeah.
It means so much more when you do that, just to go and buy a random present because you've got to buy a random present for someone. Like it does come back to, it's the thought that counts.
It really is. It really is. And I do agree. I think this current climate, the pandemic, and the impact on not being able to go and buy freely or spend freely or go to the shops, and we have to do a lot of things online, and we can't be in person with the people that that we love and want to spend time with. It's we have more time and space to really think about what's important to people. I mean, my partner and I are giving each other gifts of audiobooks.
Fantastic.
No trees got killed, no postage, no shipping. It's such a great idea. And so we've given each other ideas of the books that we love, and then we're going to go and order them and download them and listen to them over the holidays.
Yep.
So the other thing, I'm really hoping that people are getting less commercially driven in their gift giving. But yes, I like the idea of shopping or thinking outside the box. I was also thinking too, maybe I can have a conversation with my partner and say, look, the sales are going to come on after Christmas. How
Yeah,
about we
and
just
that's
wait until after Christmas till the sales are on? Or how about we just wait until the New Year sales and then go and have a
mm,
look at, what great
mm,
bargains are there?
And if there's something you particularly want to buy or something, like, you just wait and do it then, and you can
Yeah,
get, I mean, you can get it at a so yeah, it's not, one day is not the be all and end all of, all days.
no, right, absolutely. What about, I guess people can save their money in advance. They can club
Mm,
together to go for a combined present, so you
yep,
get less, but you get a better quality, perhaps.
yep.
Well, we were looking
Doing
at our,
that, doing the Secret Santa thing, like you just buy, I mean, if you've got a
yeah,
big family that, someone just buys for one person, but they buy a really nice, so there's just one present, but they buy a lovely present. I know a lot of families do that for the grown-ups, and they just buy for the, they buy for the kids. So there's, and look, I mean, if you want to be super organized, now is the time to start planning for next year. It's just actually
absolutely.
starting up at, like a, like a Christmas account or something like that. So, like, work out what it costs you, what your investment is over Christmas and stuff like that, and go, right, okay, so I need to have X amount. I know I need X amount for next year. Divide that by 12. I mean, it's probably not going to, it'll be nothing really. It'll be very little. And just make sure
And,
you put that away, and it's in
yeah.
a bank account waiting for you when Christmas starts to come next
And
year.
it's not
So,
like Christmas is a surprise. It happens every
and
year.
no, it's not a surprise.
Not a
It is,
surprise.
yeah, no.
Okay.
So that'd be my main ones, yeah.
Cool. Let's talk about the importance of getting your money foundation sorted. What
Mm.
do we need to know? Where do we start? Because for a lot of us, it can be really overwhelming. So, what are our foundations and what do we need to do about them?
So that's what I was talking about before, is women don't see. I think the real missing link for women, particularly women in business, is actually getting these money foundations in place around their personal finances. So what I'm talking about there is really, the overarching, taking accountability, responsibility, ownership, and stuff like that. But actually, what does that mean down the nitty gritty is actually really, pulling that curtain back and really shining the light on what is going on with your, with your money and your personal finances. So it's actually really knowing your numbers. So, I do what I call a personal financial audit. So you know what your asset pools are, what you own, what you owe, all about what, your debts are, and your mortgage and that sort of thing. You know what you've got coming in. So you know what payments and, where they're coming from and when they're coming and that sort of thing. So you know what you've got coming in. And, the big one is, what you've got going out. So around your financial commitments. And, I always break that down into our fixed costs, which are our ongoing sort of big ticket items that we pay on a regular ongoing basis. So there's sort of your big rocks. And then we talk about, our lifestyle spending. So it's just having a look at what, without attachment and without emotion, but, having a look at actually what we're spending around lifestyle. And, as you know, I've said for years, Nicole, I've said I don't believe in doing budgets. I believe in making sure that there is money available for what we want to spend money on, particularly around lifestyle stuff. So that might mean it's, changing the landscape a bit. But if we have to go back and find out that information first of where and what we're spending our money on, to then be able to be in a position to make a conscious decision about where and what we want to spend our money on. So it's really just getting the, knowing your numbers, understanding what makes up your money pot, going through and reviewing your fixed costs to make sure they're as efficient as possible. It's just that visibility and that awareness and that consciousness around what is going on with our money and our personal finances. And people, women don't want to look at it because they don't want to know what they don't want to know. But that's actually what's keeping them disempowered. That's what's keeping them fearful. That's, it's so liberating to go and find out this information. It's amazing. And then
So
it flows
what
on.
would you suggest then if they're with a partner and the partner just doesn't want to talk about the money stuff, or doesn't want to say, look, here's our monthly expenditure, or this is how much I'm earning? What if there is that, that lack of transparency in a partnership and a household? I mean, as an individual woman, yep, you can just,
Yep. Well, you're master of your own domain anyway. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you're in a partnership, how do you have those difficult conversations with the partner?
Well, I would always like to think, if I'm talking to the partner as well, I just sort of say, most of the times if they're taking on the share of the load, they don't actually want to be taking it all on because it's a huge pressure on them as well. So what I always sort of, what I frame it to them is actually bringing, usually the female, bringing her up to be able to bring you down and meet in the middle. So you're sharing the load, not one person's having to do everything and take responsibility and that sort of thing. So I would frame it very much as it's helping them as much as it's helping my client, the female, that because you're on a level playing field, so no one's shouldering the load, and then educating the women to come up and actually understand what's going on. And so I'm working with someone at the moment, and her homework was, and in the first week, was actually to go and have a conversation with her husband about all their assets, and she had to come back and actually explain what they were, what was going on, what was all about them. Her homework was actually to come back and explain that to me. So then she actually had a really good handle on what was going on. So it wasn't that she was taking over the managing or the running of them or anything like that, but she actually knows what is going on there.
I can imagine that might, maybe for some partnerships, be quite a difficult conversation to have, because it's threatening to the man to think, well, I'm assuming that the partnership is a man, but it could be threatening in a partnership that's been going on for some time, where they don't feel it's a burden. They feel it's their way of taking care of the other person, to handle all the finances and have all the information and manage all the paperwork and make decisions about what does and doesn't get spent on. And perhaps there might even be some guilt around, well, they haven't managed it particularly well. Now they're being asked these questions. It could be quite confronting, make them very uncomfortable. How do you get around things like that?
I think, Nicole, it's just having the conversation and just understanding that they're not under attack for anything that they've done. They've done a fantastic job. What we're wanting to do is lighten the load for them. And in pretty much everyone that I speak to is available for that. They're going, okay, yep. And like, they might get a bit defensive and stuff like that. But when they realise it's not to come in and go poke holes in what they're doing or saying that they should be doing it a different way or whatever, it's to help them and support them as opposed to not. And 100% agree. It can be a bit of a difficult situation. And, obviously there's all different layers of why that might be happening. So you have to, tread a little bit carefully sometimes. But I think it's not about blame. It's not about taking over the running of it or anything like that. It's just to make sure that they're being able to support each other in the partnership. And, I always explain it. A lot of couples I see that and these are ones that are in really great relationships, but especially around their money and their finances, they're like in different trains, in different train tracks, heading in different directions. And like, my goal is to have them in the same train, on the same train track, heading the same direction, because then they're in a position to start, something I talk to them about is actually having a regular money date, is actually to sort of, to talk about this stuff and open up the space. And it's about the day-to-day fundamental stuff, but what it also does is creates this space for them to start thinking about the future, checking in if they're still on the same page or on the same track, or what they're wanting to. So it creates that space to have a much bigger conversation around future as well, like what's going on now, but also future. And just to sort of see that, to checking in with each other around that.
Yeah, great.
It's so important. Yeah.
Yeah. I also imagine too, by the time they're coming to meet with you to be coached and mentored and guided through this process, they've either come to a realization that there's something not quite right, or they want to take it to that next level, and they really want to make sure that they're creating, greater wealth by managing, the day-to-day much better. Okay, let's move on to topic number 4, busting the money myths around financial freedom. What do you mean by that?
Well, that's sort of interrelated to the financial foundations, because, a lot of us think we have to go and, make more money, earn more money, or stop spending money, or whatever, all the myths that we think around, money. And actually that's not actually the case. When people actually just pull the curtain back and have a look at their finances, and and have a look at what's going on with their financial foundations, with their understanding about their money stories and their programming and beliefs, and how that's all interrelated, money no longer becomes a problem. So it's just so you don't actually have to do You don't have to stop spending money. You don't have to make more money. You don't have to find more money. You don't have to, it's just actually, it's kind of having a look at your own backyard, if you know what I mean. Like, it's just, so that's a, fundamental, and I think that's why people shy away. It's like going on a diet. Who wants to go on a diet? Who wants to be put on a budget? Like, I mean, not me, and not you. So it's just reframing it in a different way of what people perceive or think that they're going to have to do when it comes to, creating this, their financial freedom and choice. A lot of times they don't actually have to necessarily do anything different or change their circumstances. It's actually shining the light on what they're actually doing right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I guess in some cases too, once they sit down, they might go, "Oh, we're actually doing fine." Maybe it was just, a fear creeping up that is there something hidden in the background that we haven't considered, or should we be better at this?
Mm.
Do we need to get another job? Could we take a step back? Maybe one of us can go part
Mm.
time.
Mm.
And once you look at it, you're like, "Oh, we're actually okay." I was afraid of, monsters in the dark, and they weren't there.
Yeah. Yeah. And once you know what you know, then you're in the position to go, well, do we want to keep on this way, or do we want to do this or that? Or so you have freedom of making choices, informed and educated decisions around your money and personal finances, but you have to do that. You have to understand what's going on first.
Right, right. So track it,
Mm.
record it, ask
Mm.
questions
Mm.
about it. For me, I created an Excel spreadsheet and then started. I used to try and write down everything I spent every day. I was like, oh, I feel it's just yuck. It had the wrong energy. So I'll do it at the end of the month and then look back.
Mm.
How much money did I spend on coffees?
Mm.
Was it how much did I spend on personal care like nails, lipstick, hair, that
Yep.
sort of stuff? It's amazing how much that stuff adds up.
Yep.
Could I do that a better way? Could I get a better bargain? Could I just not do it for a few months and just see if I can, get around
Mm.
it and save a bit of money there? Did I need to go out to dinner to more expensive places? Could I go somewhere a little
Mm.
bit more affordable and just go out as much? But
Mm.
tracking it and then having an Excel spreadsheet. And then the first time I did it was so overwhelming. I was like, oh my goodness, this is really a pain in the bum. But you only have to
Mm.
do that once. And then all you need to
Mm.
do is maybe on Money Monday, just pop in there, add all the figures
Mm.
in, have a quick check,
Yep.
check your statement. What bills have I got coming
Yep.
up? And you're done. It's
Mm.
it's that initial, I guess, potential overwhelm of, is there something in there hiding that's going to bite me, and I'm going to have to admit that I didn't deal with it sooner, or I didn't know
Mm.
something, or I've been sort of fooling myself. Two,
Mm.
it's going to be a lot of work. No.
Mm.
Three, do I need to make more money? Am I
Mm.
going to have to do a money diet, which I don't like? Am I going to have uncomfortable conversations with
Yeah.
my partner or family
Yeah.
members?
Yeah.
So none of those really
No.
necessarily.
No.
Maybe.
No. No. And it's you touched on a really good point there. It's not making it right or wrong or good or bad. It just is data. It's just information. And then it's what you do with it is completely up to you. So if you're comfortable with what you're spending and where you're spending it, great, fantastic, amazing. But if you're saying over here, oh, we'd really like to build up some cash reserves, or we'd like to pay down some of this debt, or we'd like to put away money for a holiday or children's education or whatever, then you actually are in the position to go, all right, well, we might just ease back a bit over here, and then we can start channeling that money over here. So it's just information. One of my favorite sayings is knowing where your money goes gives you freedom of choice around where you want it to go. So it's not making it right or wrong or good or bad. And that's why I sort of say, when you track your spending and things like that, is actually do it as purely as a data gathering exercise. It's not and because people go, oh, I don't want to know what I'm spending, and everyone has the same. But when they do it, it's the funniest thing. It's probably the most liberating one of the most liberating things. And I've had a number of clients say to me again lately, oh, I just think I'll get people to do it for 30 days because we are creatures of habit, and we tend to spend the same amount of money on the same things. We think we're these complicated, sophisticated creatures, but we actually are creatures of habit when it comes to our spending. But they without fail, they'll at the end of the 30 days they say, you know what, I think I'm going to actually keep doing this for another month. And I go, fantastic, because they've gotten so much out of it, of understanding where and what they're spending their money on. So it's really, really cool.
Yeah, and I definitely had a lot of self-worth attached to money.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
also had some, we're going to move into that now, which is, your money stories and how they might be running the show. So for me, it was
Yeah.
definitely like, I was brought up where the man ran the money, but my mum sort of kept food on the table and clothes on our back because she was
Mm.
so smart with a little bit of money. She could make it go a long
Yeah.
way. She had 5 children. They
Yeah.
were immigrants. There's all that kind of money
Yes.
scarcity. She cleaned houses for rich people. There was money stories around that. There were stories around, the role of a man, the role of a woman, and
Mm.
when it came to
Mm.
money, traditional roles, that sort of thing. I personally had money stories around, burnout attached to the amount of money that you needed to earn and how hard you had to work.
Mm.
Stories around money lack, uh,
Mm.
the types of people who had money abundance. There was
Mm.
lots of stories. So let's delve
Mm.
into the money story side of things because I think there's a lot wrapped up in that.
Yeah, it's this is the mothership basically around what's like. I mean, and I think, there's two phrases that I hear quite commonly women saying is that, I feel like I'm in this pattern or cycle with money and I can't, it doesn't matter what I do, I can't stop it. Or I feel like I've got an unhealthy relationship with money, but I can't quite put my finger on it. So they're two sort of fairly common um, statements I hear women say, and it's this is actually being driven by our money beliefs, or our subconscious beliefs that are formed by about the age of 7, and we take everything in like a little sponge or filter with no filters. So a lot of the stuff we take in um, may not be serving us, but a lot of it actually not even true. And so then, but they're actually, that's when we form our core beliefs. And then, obviously we get older, they get further ingrained and reinforced, and, all that sort of stuff as we get older, to the fact when we're adults, that we've got these subconscious beliefs, or, we'll call it programming, or, Tolle calls it the pain body, what everyone's got their own title for it. But it's effectively the same thing, that it's beliefs, or, some people call it trauma, stuff that we're carrying on that actually, and so then we'll have an external interaction or event or person. And then when, these beliefs will get triggered, that start this whole process going for us around, goes up into our thoughts. And our power of our thoughts, and that's where we actually can change it. But then our thoughts create this emotional response, which obviously creates our reality. And particularly if it's not a good outcome, then that further reinforces that belief. So it's really, it's actually really understanding, first of all, what our money stories are, because I will just, if how money was spoken about when you're growing up, I would challenge anyone that's not showing up somewhere in our adult life. It could be showing up in our, how we actually interact with money ourselves, like our own relationship with money. It could be showing up in our personal relationships, with what we are talking about before about couples, or it can be showing up in our businesses around that self-worth, and how we show up, or are we charging for our worth, are we over delivering, all those sorts of things. Or like the trifecta, I've experienced all three. So it's, and I think what you were alluding to too, Nicole, you have as well. So it will be showing up somewhere in our adult life. And I think it's really important to understand the enormity of the impact that can have, because such a big part of I was talking about before, part of our identity is so ingrained and entwined with our relationship with money and that sort of thing, based on these stories and beliefs, but also on our societal conditioning around the man looks after the money, or your girls aren't good with money, or all those sorts of things. It could have just been little throw off lines that someone said to us when we were a little person, and that has actually formed a belief structure, a belief system that's actually driving the show, and we actually don't even know that that's happening.
And so, in your experience, what have been sort of the common limiting beliefs around money that your clients have overcome with you, for example?
look, fundamentally, it all comes back down to self-worth, really. That's, it shows up in all different ways, but it all comes back to our self-worth.
So I'm not
So it's
worth
actually,
being rich, or I'm not worth charging a certain amount, or I'm not worth
mm.
managing money myself. I don't have the skills, abilities, talent, whatever. Um, okay, so self-worth. And so how do you help a woman overcome that limiting belief of low self-worth?
I think it's really, first of all, understanding the money stories, and it's not that going back and blaming your family and stuff like that, because they were doing the best they could do with the information they've had. It's just
Yeah,
having that
right.
awareness of where it might be showing up in your life. So that's sort of the starting point, and then sort of have that understanding. Are there limiting beliefs in your life? Are there
Mm,
beliefs that actually aren't even true? And so
mm,
I go through quite a process of actually, getting women to write them all down, and actually going through and reframing them, because a lot of them
mm,
aren't even true. They're just stories.
mm.
They're just stories.
They're
They're not
just
even
stories.
they're just stories. But they have got so much energy and so much, attachment and identity and stuff like that. So it's actually about blowing them completely out of the water. That's really and I go through quite a process. And it's not painful. It sounds like it might be a bit painful. It's not painful, but it's just really, understanding that, and where it's showing up. And, whether I've had clients that, first of all, it was showing up in their personal life, and we cleared that. And then sometimes it started showing up in their business as well. So we'd have to go and clear that, because it's, with personal growth and personal development and stuff like that, it's an evolution of, continually growing. So it might pop up here, and if you haven't quite, there's a little bit that you haven't sort of quite and got, it'll pop up somewhere else until you actually, you can actually, which is why, we keep getting presented these opportunities to clear it and to sort it out. And it just keeps going. But that's a fantastic thing. And the amazing thing is that we actually have everything inside us to be able to do this. We don't need anything external, apart from, obviously someone perhaps like me to support you through the process. But you're effectively, and holding space for you and accountability and that sort of thing. But you've got everything that you need, inside. Sometimes it's just uncovering it and getting to the nuggets of gold that we
Yeah,
all
because
have.
if we've been having these stories for a long time, and we can really be deluded that that's true. And when someone else listens to it, they're like, really? Is that true? And then you have to defend it outside of yourself. You're like, oh, wow, that doesn't even make sense when I say it out loud.
Well,
Or
no.
it might have just become our automatic default habit, and we're not even aware that we're doing it until you
Yeah.
suddenly get it held up in front of you. Like, I do that. I say that. Maybe there's a certain word pattern they're using to
Mm,
describe money.
yep.
So what would be some of the common ways people might say things in their everyday life, which would be limiting them, or identifying that might have a limiting belief?
A big one is, I can't afford it. Like, you mean, so it's
Mm,
your self talk in your mind. And so this is what I get people to do. Absolutely brain anything, anytime any negative self talk comes up. Oh, I'm, oh, look what's happened again. I've failed again. Or, no, I have no clients. No one wants to pay me. I mean, there is. I mean, it's a quite an exhaustive list. But also be really, and so it's actually catching those thoughts and understanding, and then being able to reframe them, because it's proven science now. It's not even woo woo anymore, that you can actually your neural pathways, you can reprogram them to actually, and where your focus goes, your energy flows. So we're not looking over here and having this whole thing about our stories and our past and stuff like that. It's actually reframing them and actually focusing over here, to the point where they can't even remember what these actually were, because they were just stories. They weren't
yeah,
actually true.
yeah,
So
absolutely,
it's just
absolutely.
it's really, where your energy goes, your focus, or where your focus goes, your energy flows and stuff like that. So, and your thoughts create your reality. So it's just becoming very present, and having that awareness and that understanding of actually what's going on. And once you do, as I said at the beginning, once you rip that band-aid off, or once you have this awareness, you can't unsee it.
Right. And so when you're working
Yeah.
with clients, you're helping, that's a process you take them through to quite some
Yes.
degree. Track your
Yeah.
money and get aware of what you've got. And then let's look at your money story. Let's either blow the story out of the water, or let's
Mm.
reword the way that you're talking about money so that you start to believe and experience it in a different way. And therefore it
Yeah.
starts showing up in reality in a way that you've intentionally wanted it to show up rather than by default.
Yeah. 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 I think, and a lot of women, yeah, and that's, how I'm coaching with my coaches. It's not that pushing. And you talk about burnout, not that
Mm.
pushing, because we are not designed as females to be, because it's very masculine. It's very, and that's what a lot of women do, burn out. And so it's the same thing with their businesses or their money or their whatever's going on. It's actually to say is not to push and not to try and force and control and all those sorts of things. It's actually being really clear on what you want to do, and obviously take inspired action, but then just get out of the way.
Let it flow. Let it flow.
Let it
Stop blocking
flow.
it. Stop trying to control
Exactly.
it.
You keep saying you want this, but then you're doing this. What, like, it's like going, what do you want? What actually do you want? What do you really, really want?
And I think that's a real challenge for women to be to admit to themselves what they truly want and be super clear
Mm,
about that, and then to be able to talk straight about it to the people that
mm,
can do something about it. And I've
mm,
had this conversation with men as well. They're like, I don't know what she wants. And
mm,
they say it to me too. What do you want? Tell me straight. And I'll say, oh, I'm not really used to saying exactly what I want. And then I had to
mm,
practice it. And now I'll say, I
mm,
want this. Excellent. And it
mm.
shows up. And I'm like, well, that was easier than sort of eluding or suggesting or expecting you to read my mind. It's
My
like,
mind, yeah,
I've
yeah,
spent the time to work out what I really desire. And I've now gotten very clear on what that is. I've put that out there. Now let's get busy taking the action to align with that. But without that
yes,
clarity, you're not going to get the outcomes that you truly desire. So I think for women, it's
no,
also encouraging to say, you are allowed to desire. You are allowed to get clear about your desires. You're allowed to express it
mm,
clearly outside
yeah,
of yourself. And I think that might be a
totally,
great starting point, is to get women to get clear, get in touch with what they truly, truly desire, especially when it comes to money, so it can show up.
mm, yeah, and it's sometimes that is having to let go of some identities that are playing out, which is a sort of another area, another conversation for another day. But
Another
letting go,
Yeah, but I
but
told you there's going to be
let
lots of
it,
conversations.
yeah, letting go of identities, and what's what is tied up in that identity, and whether they're serving you or not. So which has can have a big impact on money and finances and stuff like that, because of what's going on there with the identities, and and things like understanding, being really clear on what your values,
Mm,
value identities, but what your values are, and making sure that your values are in line with your goals and your aspirations. Because if there's not, if there's a disconnect between them, it'll be near impossible to actually achieve these goals and aspirations, because they're not in line with your value system. But you need to know what those values are first. And I think that's a bit of a missing
mm.
link too.
Yeah, it's definitely missing. And you might actually achieve what it is that you're aiming at, but it's not aligned. So the sense of fulfillment and satisfaction when you do get the thing that you've been striving for won't be there. And so what was the point?
Mm,
And again, it comes back to owning the responsibility for getting clear on what you truly
yeah.
desire, and then spending the time and energy getting to be able to express that in an articulate and clear way with confidence, knowing that if you put that out there, you're going to receive it. And that's
Mm,
okay. You're worthy of that
mm,
and you deserve
mm,
that.
yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Melissa. We've come to time.
That's right. And it's going to be dark. I need to turn on some lights then if we
I know, you've disappeared there. You're like,
I know, I've got a bit dark. I've got a bit dark and mysterious. So
you've definitely got the eye makeup to make it all dark and mysterious. Well, thank you so much. I'm definitely going to interview you again. We've got so much we can talk about that can really help women in small business and everyone listening into this. And thank you for those
Yes,
people who've been tuning in live. I appreciate you being there. And thanks again. And I'll see you again soon. And down the bottom is the website for where you can get your money straight with Melissa.
perfect.
Get your money story straight. Bye, everybody. See you later.
See you guys. Thank you.